A very good morning to you. Welcome to the Morning Brief right here on Channels Television. September the 9th already, and we're inching closer to the end of the year. I try to remind myself, as well as every other person, that this is how it plays out. Well, I'm sure you're seeing a new face. Let him introduce himself to the program.
Well, good morning, Jeff, and good morning, Lagos. Good morning, Nigerians. I'm Kelly Egiga. It's a fantastic date indeed, September 9, precisely for me. It's my younger brother's birthday, so shout out to him, Jonah Egiga. But, I mean, you've mentioned the fact that we're getting closer to the end of the year. Barely 4 months or less to go in 2025, and how fast this year has been for many Nigerians. It's been a very pacey one. Only a few months ago we said Happy New Year, and here we are. September is here, so it's good to join. It's good to have you join us on the show this morning. So much to unpack. We begin here in Lagos, where there were stories of demolition yesterday in Oworonshoki, and that area is really very controversial because for some time now we have always gotten invites to come cover stories and reports in those areas where government had always marked some of the houses there for demolition. I think those areas can be referred to as is it low water areas, they call them now, and so they are very, very susceptible to flooding, and so that again played out yesterday. I know that civil society organizations have always been clamoring for perhaps an end to those demolitions, but he was looking at also images on the screen there of what that caused yesterday. Serious gridlock on the 3rd Mainland Bridge and that axis as well as a result of the protests and all of that, the police intervention. Jeff?
Absolutely. I understand it's about ancestral homes being destroyed. I understand the people have, it's been back and forth. As you've rightly stated, the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Jimo, was present, as you can see him on the screen, to restore a bit of order. If you travel through that road, or if you move through that access yesterday, I'm so sorry. I know certain people who spend hours upon hours. Initially, it's even a bit complicated because I think there's, around the Guru area, there's construction going on. Then added to this burden.
And then it rained again yesterday.
So rain, the protests, construction. Oh boy, this is a very bad time to live in this part of Lagos. If you had business going to the island or coming from the island to the mainland, it was hell on earth. Literally yesterday, hell on earth. And this is the commercial nerve center of Nigeria, Lagos. So we hope that today, I don't know what is going on there today. So if you have pictures, if you have videos, whatever it is, our producers will be putting out details on the screen, whether it's WhatsApp, email. So please make the most of it and send it to us. And let's find out exactly how the road is today, because I guess the people just wanted to make a statement. Making a statement, the statement was pretty loud yesterday.
Absolutely.
And that has affected a lot of things as far as this is concerned. But before we get to the next conversation, let's remind you that today is a bit special. The reason is because I've never seen, let me not say I've never seen, Nigerians were always on, literally trying to make sure that our voices are heard. And whatever it is we're not comfortable with, we're very loud with it. How far we go to make sure our voices are heard is a different kettle of fish. So today, I know that the new tax laws, as you all know, will be coming into effect from January the 1st, 2026. And the element that has to do with the petroleum tax, taxing your PMS or your diesel 5%, has generated loads of controversy. Well, the man responsible for framing that law, drafting that law that was passed into, drafting the bill that was passed into law, said, look, it's not going to take effect immediately. So what we will do today is that the chairman of the committee, Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, will be joining us, and we're going to have ample time, at least 30 to 40 minutes, to discuss extensively the things that you're concerned about. What has been said on social media that is false or that is true. He's going to answer all of the questions today. So when he comes in at about 7:30, we hope to start that conversation. He's going to make his case yet again known because he did that during the bill's phase. So this is what we will do. And we did tell him that today is less of us asking you questions. I mean, asking him questions. It's going to be him responding to your questions directly. You will be the one asking him questions. All we will do is to bring out our devices and trace your question, whether via email or WhatsApp. So the producers will keep our email constantly on the screen throughout the program while it's here to make sure you send your messages and the WhatsApp number as well. So every question you have, every anger you have, everything you want to vent about, I know that the highlight of this moment has to do with the 5% petroleum tax or tax on PMS or diesel. The Nigerians are already angry. In fact, TUC says they don't want to hear about it. It came from FEMA into that law, and they said, scrap it entirely. We don't want to hear anything about it. The burden is already too much on Nigerians. Well, the man in charge of the tax bill that became law is going to be responding to all of your questions after he makes his case yet again today on the program. So from 7:30 onward, it's going to be Taiwo Yedele and you. We are just here to moderate all of the sessions. But let's tell you some other thing that is playing now. So start sending your questions now. Please, start sending those questions now. The email address, I suppose, should be scrolling on your screen so you can send your question, a WhatsApp number as well. But Nupeng has said they are going to continue with their strike yet again. The reason is simple. Yesterday, they had a meeting. It's a tripartite meeting, Kelly, between the federal government, you can see the minister, the minister and the minister of state meeting with officials of Nupeng. This meeting was actually delayed. It was supposed to be for 3 p.m., but because of the importance of the meeting, they shifted it to 10 a.m., and then the flights were delayed in Lagos, so it was adjusted. When they finally met yesterday, we heard that there was a deadlock between Nupeng, Dangote refinery, and of course the labor union. One was the problem, saying Dangote refinery is saying that their truckers or their truck drivers will not be part of the union. And the organization or the union that's responsible for that subsector said that is not going to happen. Yesterday we had the Petrol president. He made a case, look, they want Dangote refinery to survive, but the perceived monopoly and all of the things that are playing out is not acceptable. So we understand there was a walkout, literally, because certain parties were not shifting grounds yesterday. So we may be bracing for another round of maybe scarcity. We do not know. But let's take a listen to the excerpt of what was said yesterday by the officials.
The representative of the Dangote refinery walked out on the Honorable Minister and organized labor. When we bent backward to accommodate his uncompromising behavior, he still did what he had to do. So we are left no option than to do the needful. It takes more than a party to reach a resolution. So whenever the representative of the Dangote petroleum refinery, when he sees the need for a meaningful dialogue, why not? We are ready. We are ready anytime, even this night. If he changes his mind and comes back, that is ready for discussion, we're here.
We cannot stand and see an investor whose main purpose is to come and enslave Nigerians. You cannot take us back to the dark days of slavery. Nigerians has wished him so well that to enslave them. So it's unfortunate that at this point in time, we're having an investor whose main purpose is to say there can't be union in his establishment. He wants to monopolize the entire system and even monopolize workers alongside with them. This we said no.
So the argument here, Kelly, is to the effect that he is a battle in business right now. It depends on who you're listening to. So everybody is fighting for survival. First, Dangote, he has a refinery. In the downstream sector, he doesn't have retail outlets, yes, but he has partnership with retail outlet. But now he's into logistics because he bought 4,000 CNG-powered trucks. So he wants to deliver this petrol directly to the people. Perhaps, I don't know whether the other members of the subsectors were trying to frustrate him. We do not know. But they are saying, this is, as much as they wish him well, and he's done Nigeria proud and has done a great business, they want to see that this perceived monopoly doesn't work. So as far as they are concerned, even stopping workers from being unionized, as they use the word, is not going to be acceptable.
Well, and Africa's richest man, Alhaji Dangote, is not a man of many words, so he doesn't get to talk a lot of times. So Nigerians would always want to speculate and want to hear from him. His company has been under a lot of scrutiny in very recent times. Before this time, it was the accident between Fina's sister, and then another one that happened somewhere in Delta State. So his company has been, you know, in the limelight in very recent days, I should say. But then again, we also look at the fact that he has also made some very serious investments. And so as a businessman, perhaps we'll be looking at, for the investments I have made, for the risks that I have taken, for the monies I have borrowed, I'm sure he has a target in mind as per how he wants to run his business. So I don't know if by law, workers are supposed to be part of the union, because as at yesterday, as at last night, so there were conflicting reports. Some reports had said that he had okayed his workers to join the union, as at last night, some reports, while some others even said, oh, some of those, the Nupen guys had not been present in the meeting, until later we saw that they eventually made it to the meeting and all of that, and then we saw that it was a deadlock. So, so many conflicting reports here, but I think that perhaps we should cut the man some slack and give him some time to, because as a business, and then there's something about Nigerians too, I should say this, there's something about us and being in unions and associations. I don't know what it is about. Everybody wants to belong to a union or an association. I don't know how it works in other climes, but I see that you cannot do any business without belonging to a union. Sometimes you can be victimized. For instance, if you're a fashion designer and you have your shop somewhere, the fashion designers will come together and will try to look for a way to victimize you unless you belong to that union. We've seen such stories. We've heard of such stories. So I don't know by law if it's mandatory for the workers to belong to that union or not, but I think that let's give it some time. I don't think that they should go on that strike and then allow the greater population of this country to get to suffer again just because a few persons are yet to belong to that union.
You know, there's freedom of association in the law, and there are labor laws and all of that. So interest sometimes about collective interest, unity of purpose. So sometimes you may not see the need for a union until you need protection. Sometimes the union itself can become the problem. So it depends on which side you're looking at. But as you said, let's look forward to a resolution. But let's also tell you that the CVR numbers has increased. Continuous voter registration numbers has actually increased to about 3.5 million new registrations according to INEC. So those are good as far as it's concerned. But this is not the exciting part. The most exciting part will be when our votes count, when we see our results real time, not the shenanigans that go on with politics. So all of this, I want to encourage every young person who is 18 and above, please go out, and that event on radio, on social media, they will mean absolutely nothing without see that card in the hands of those ladies and that gentleman. If you do not have it to make a decision, then it's just going to be noise. So whether you're comfortable with the system or not, please go and get your PVC. If it's damaged or you change location or you had multiple registration, please, this is the time to go and rectify all of that, because 2027 is decision year for Nigerians. Whether to continue with Bola Tinubu or to look for another leader is entirely up to you. But let's...
I was just going to say that the positives for me is that I think about 60% of the numbers we've seen so far are between the ages of 18 and 34. So
from the registration.
From the registration. So it tells you that somehow the young people are deciding and have made up their minds to make
have not
their
given
voices count. So I'm happy to see that. Also interesting is the fact that I think we have more female people who have registered, more female Nigerians who have registered compared to the males.
Yeah, women are always coming out.
Which is also which is also good, because for you know, sometimes, yeah, they always come out, but then you also look at the fact that women would always want to stay back and say, no, it's politics, it's elections, we don't want to. But I'm happy to see those numbers, especially for the young population, 18 to 34, so far about 60 or 65%. I'm happy to see those numbers, but we can do more, we can do better.
When it comes to the contest itself, women try to pull back. When it comes to the voting, trust me, women are out. They will be more than... But we will be back in just a moment to bring you what the dailies are saying. Adeni Ifetayo, our analyst, will be joining us in just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. Mr. Adeni Ifetayo joins us virtually. Mr. Ifetayo, thank you so much for coming on the program. New Telegraph is how I want to kick things off. And it starts with the TUC threatening mass action. That is, strike rejects the 5% fuel tax. I'm happy we're going to have Mr. Oyedele to answer all of the questions. But the writers are, while FG moves to avert nationwide strike as Congress, others said to join Nupeng's action. Pengasan threatens shutdown of Dangote refinery as Dapman calls for dialogue, collaboration among stakeholders. Mr. Fatayo, are these gloomy days ahead of us?
Yes, like they said that where two elephant fight is only the grass that suffers, you know. So I've just pleading to both parties that they should tread with caution. So coming to TUC, you know, because of the 5% fuel increase from the, I think, January next year, I don't think government is doing us any good. You know, when the people are seeing what will I say, the investment, the infrastructure, the human capacity, what you are using our tax or whatever it is for, they'll be happy to pay tax, just like here in London now or UK, everybody are happy to pay that because they see what government is using the fund for. But now we are just battling increase, you know, increasing whatever it is, food commodity, transportation, and now you are coming again. And you know our economy or way of life, should I say, is fuel dependent. What do I mean by that? You know, a bread seller will tell you that before I could go and get my bread in the bakery, they've increased the cost of flour, they've increased the cost of the Okada rider or transportation, whatever it is. So it affects, or it snowballs to every part of our life. I think it's too early for government to be saying that come and pay 5% increase. Why they should be subsidizing some of the things that makes life meaningful for the citizen. And for the strike, please let them stress carefully. I believe in dialogue. Look at the pros, look at the cons, and see how we can come at the middle so that we can move ahead. We don't need the strike now because it's going to affect a lot of businesses. It's going to affect a lot of individuals who earn their daily living. If they don't go to work every day, if they don't make sales every day, they don't know how to take care of their family. So all those things should be put into consideration, and let us cut ourselves some slacks.
Mr. Ifetayo, let's take a look at the Nigerian News Direct. It leads, of course, with this same big story as well. FG sues for peace in Dangote and Nupeng dispute. There are other riders there. Let's see if we can take some of them now. It says, we will vie for 2027 elections without Obi. That's coming from the Labour Party spokesman. Lagos pays 1.52 billion naira pension to 798 retirees. El-Rufai is also in the news. It says El-Rufai accuses Kaduna Police Commissioner of complicity in August attack. So, well, I know that you've mentioned this. We don't need this strike at this time. We're battling inflation, double digits numbers at this time. Maybe we should talk politics a bit because we can see that as well play out in other papers this morning. The Labour Party spokesperson is saying that we will vie for 2027 elections without Peter Obi. I wonder what you make of this assessment, because it looks like you cannot separate Peter Obi from Labour Party. He perhaps made the party maybe more popular. Do you agree?
Yes, yes, of course. What they were trying to say, there have been some light when he said that Peter Obi has said that he's ready to join anything that will remove this present administration, of course, legally, maybe via election. And ADC, they are gaining momentum, and even the call for him to join PDP since they've zoned their presidential ticket to the south. Maybe he might come back, the call for Willow Jonathan to come and all of that. So, but what they are saying, whether he wants to join them or not, they will still vie for, at least as a political party, they must have a standard bearer, unless they say that, and we don't know 24 hours before the election, that's where you will hear, or 48 hours, some party will say we have come together. We see that this party A, their agendas align with us, so we want to root for this candidate. Is a thing that is common when it comes to our own election. But I think as a party who's gaining momentum, I'm sure other people want to vie for some position under Labour Party. Of course, and if it is about ideology, I think moving from one party to the other, most of our politicians, they don't have that ideology. Just in America, if you're a Democrat or you are Republican or the other one, so you are there for life. But here, if it's where it favors most of the politicians, that's where they switch their allegiance to. But he was just saying that whether Peter Obi will stay with us or not, based on what is going on, we still have, we still vie for election. And of course, for the strike, just like we said, we don't need that now because it will be adding insult to injury that Nigerians are already going through.
As far as the polity is concerned, and it's quite heavy on a lot of citizens as we speak. But let's, before we move away from Nigerian News Direct, I don't know what played out yesterday at the event where I understand the Honorable Speaker Abbas Tajuddin was represented, I think, by one of his lawmakers in the House, or one of the lawmakers in the House, about the ballooning or the debt ceiling or the debt size of our debt profile of our country. I think our debt profile ranges around 140 trillion or so. I know that the president had said the other day that they met the non-oil sector revenue target. So the budget size is about 55 trillion. Let's approximate it to 55 trillion. I think the deficit is about 13 to 15 trillion. And then the revenue that was meant to be generated to when you now bring out the deficit, revenue was about 36 trillion, so the deficit is the balance. So out of the 36 trillion, the non-oil sector accounted for an amount, I think about 15 or so trillion, and then the oil sector amounted to, of course, the bigger amount. But he said by August this year, that non-oil sector revenue has already been met, and so there was no need to start borrowing from local banks. Crowding out effects is what is called, so that local companies, private sector, can now have opportunity to borrow more rather than being crowded out by public sector borrowing. So with all of this touting, there was an event, I understand the speaker was represented, and the headline on the Nigerian News Direct said, Nigeria's debt breaches statutory ceiling, poses structural crisis. But I know that, I don't know whether to call it a rejoinder or a damage control. He re-emphasized it on his own personal page, and then, spoke about the fact that the president is working assiduously to make sure that that is reversed. What do you think he's playing out here?
They said, Yoruba will say eggs is a word. I mean, once it drop on the ground, it will be very difficult for you to pull it together. But I would just say a kind of damage control, or since he has come to say that was not what it meant, that he was trying to say, yes, if you borrow and you invest it and it makes life meaningful, we have seen the result in infrastructure, in this and that. But a case when some of our some state government, even federal government borrow that you cannot even account or the infrastructure on ground or what the money was meant for, you can't even account for up to 50%. So because some of those money ended up in some private pockets, from individual who are cabal, so to say. So it calls for action. But of course, if you are borrowing and you are having a means to pay back, the even international community, they look at you that, okay, you are running an healthy economy. But he has said it, for him to say that a man at his caliber, he has so much information at his hand. But since he has come out to say, okay, this present administration, they are doing their best. When you look at it in this infrastructure, of course, he who pays the piper will definitely dictate the tone. If he's coming, he's getting the support, like somebody lambasted him, but you are the one who approved some of these borrowing, as in they brought them to, you approved our budget, and so to say, you pass them into law and all of that. So, but what we want to appeal to our leaders, especially political leaders, is that whatever money or loan is being taken, please let them use it for what it's meant for. We want to have more infrastructure. When things work, people will not complain about borrowing. But when you say you borrow trillions of naira and there's no commensurate infrastructure on ground to justify it, then they begin to call for questioning. And lastly, I may say on this, when it comes to borrowing, I think we need all those anti-graft agencies to be carried along, and government should be transparent. Oh, we have borrowed 20 naira, we have released 10 naira to this company to build this road, we have released 5 naira, to that company to do this infrastructure, so that those people can know what they are putting on ground, is it commensurate to what the government has given them. So those are the things that we should look at.
The Vanguard newspapers begin to wind down. Vanguard is leading with politics. 2027, Jonathan's camp, PDP top shots, wooing Peter Obi. Ex-president, only southerner that can beat Tinubu. So the game is on. Whilst some members of the Labour Party are trying to kick him out, others are trying to drag him in. So it's a different kettle of fish for different sets of people. And now it's beginning to look like there's a bit of a rallying across the political parties, even though their internal issues are there. We already know Tinubu, I doubt if he will not run, but it's as good as God, because he's been endorsed by his party to run for a second term. With the PDP, we're not sure who is going to run for the PDP, but we're seeing these nuances around Peter Obi, the ADC, maybe his Atiku, we do not know. So what do you think is going on here? Do you think Peter Obi will eventually head back to the PDP, or because some members of the Labour Party say they don't want him?
The thing is, election, as we say, is a game of number, and the more the merrier. And Jonathan camp, PDP wooing Peter Obi, they know that since it's been zoned to the south, if Peter Obi should join them, maybe later Jonathan will just support, or he will support Jonathan and all of that. They need all the support they could get. And of course, start to be corrected. Some of their followers, a few of their followers, their psycho fans, it's just all about what they can get. So they don't mind to say, come, you still have that pedigree, come back here, we need you, come and support our agenda, because this is the party that have the structure on ground, so to say, or the largest opposition for now that can get you the number. So let's see how it plays out. Like Peter Obi has said, is for those who could, how will I say, is for those who are joining forces together to make sure they ask this present administration to give Nigerian a better deal, coming 2027.
All right, Ms. Adeni Fetaya, thank you so much, as always, for bringing your expertise to the front pages of the dailies. We appreciate you, and safe trip. And
thank you.
Back here, a couple of things we'll do. First, we're going to start with our conversation around the tax laws today. Mr. Taiwo Idele is going to be responding to all of your questions. So we want to remind you, well, it's not just tax we'll talk about today. We're going to talk about the strike that has also started in the nation's capital, Abuja, by the resident doctors. And you heard what happened with JAMB, the manipulation using technology for people's thumbprint and all of the malpractices that played out. That is also going to be a big conversation on the program. But first, we'll talk about the tax laws. I know the one that is highest on everybody's mind is this 5% fuel tax that is making Nigerians super angry. The TUC is angry, said they will go on strike. They don't even want it anywhere near any law. Well, Taiwo Udela is the chairman of the Presidential Fiscal Committee and Tax Reforms. He will be here to answer all of your questions. So we want to say again, today is more of you asking questions than us doing the questions. So start sending your questions to the email address. When he's done with his case and presentation, we're going to bring those questions to him and say, these are the things that Nigerians want to find answers to across board. There are so many there are 4 laws as far as the tax administration is concerned in Nigeria. So you will need to familiarize yourself with it. But we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, Mr. Taiwo Oyedele joins us in just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. Mr. Taiwo Oyedele is the Chairman, Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Mr. Oyedele, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you, Jeff. Good morning.
All right, fantastic. It's good to have you here. And I have to say, a lot of Nigerians are angry, especially that has to do with the 5%. I listened to the radio this morning. People are angry. I looked at the front pages of the newspaper. They are very upset. What has been brought upon them, already hardship. And it's okay, no problem. Thank God we have you to give that background explainer, and then they are going to respond in questions. So I know that you have something to share with us in terms of what this tax eventually will do. You've been explaining this for as long as I can remember, but Nigerians don't want to hear anything that has to do with tax. Maybe it's an opportunity again for us to get to see, again, the pros or the cons, if you will. What is false and what is true? Because I follow through the social media, and I heard a lot of things, and I was like, okay, is this really in the law, or is not in the law, or is a hyperbole? So help us make sense of what we're dealing with as we gear towards 2026, when this whole policy will take effect in terms of our laws.
Yes, thank you very much once again, and good morning to Nigerians. So yes, you're right. Many Nigerians are angry because it's not peculiar to Nigeria. So anywhere in the world, when people hear about taxes, their initial reaction is to always want to push back and to just want to say no. So what we've actually seen is even the reform that is ongoing around taxation, while the bulk of those reforms are to reduce taxes, both the number of taxes, the tax rates, the tax burden. There are even instances where we share a post that is saying that small businesses have now been exempted, and you see comment there and somebody is still abusing us to say, you don't know more than tax. So that's understandable for people to be angry, especially when they feel like they're not seeing the returns or benefit for the taxes that they pay. But I think it's also important for us because our objectives are the same. We want a better country for ourselves, that we should therefore be more attentive to the details of reforms. So it's not just everything that we have to then start complaining about, even when the intentions are for the benefit of the country. So these tax reforms, like you rightly mentioned, they are into 4 different laws. And altogether, these tax laws are introducing over 200 measures and changes to the tax system. Because there's always the temptation to go with a single story or a single narrative. There was a time when we're still working on the bills with the National Assembly that you would think that the whole bill was about VAT sharing formula. So in the past few days now, it's been about the surcharge on fuel. A couple of weeks before then, it was about the 800,000 at 0%, and anything above that, people will pay 20%. And some of these things are just people not fully understanding what the law provides, and people who either, for whatever reasons, just decide to cook up things that they don't even fully understand. And suddenly, everybody's a tax expert trying to analyze what the tax law says. And sometimes they say it with so much confidence, and you want to believe what they're saying, even when it is wrong. So, thanks to Channel for this platform to try and clarify some of the issues. And my job here today is not to try and speak for the government. That's not the job that's been given to me. Is to lead some very patriotic and eminent Nigerians from all walks of life to try and reform an important aspect of our economy. So that's what I'm here for. So the proverbial, elephant and the blind man is that the blind man touching the elephant and seeing different parts of it, and they concluded, as one thought it was a fan, one thought it was, a snake, one thought it was a spear, and so on and so forth, and none of them got the right answer because they did not see the big picture or the complete picture. So my encouragement to Nigerians is just spend time and look at details of those laws. We've shared them, on our website, fiscalreforms.ng. You can download copies of those laws. You see a lot of analysis we have done. Because at the end of the day, if you don't focus on what will benefit you, you may just miss out on the advantages of the reforms. One thing I can tell you with all sincerity is that those reforms will benefit all Nigerians, particularly the low income, middle income, as well as small businesses, as well as industries as well, including manufacturers. So having said that, let me quickly speak to the surcharge on fuel. So one very important message for people to know is that this surcharge was not introduced by this government. It was introduced in 2007. And then it wasn't implemented because government was subsidizing fuel. So while we were doing this tax reform, it wasn't even in the original proposal. So it wasn't like the president proposed it to the National Assembly. But in the process of working on the bills, these issues came up. And then the decision was made that we shouldn't have different agencies collecting taxes. So the law that set up these surcharge mandated FEMA, that's the Federal Road Maintenance Agency, to collect this surcharge. 40% of it was to be for federal government roads, and 60% was meant to go to states of the revenue collected. Like I said, it wasn't implemented. And because of this reform, many taxes, so many of them were repealed from our laws. For example, there was a tax introduced on telecommunication by the previous administration that was already removed from the law as we speak. There was one on cybersecurity that has now been harmonized, and so on and so forth. So many taxes, people easily say that President Tinubu is a tax master, he's introducing taxes, but I'll challenge anybody to tell me, one tax that this president has introduced. So most of the taxes, even the cybersecurity levy, was introduced in the previous administration. But to prevent that has been implemented arbitrarily without proper consideration for the state of the economy, issues around inflation. So the decision was made to put this in the new law and to put a commencement date that is going to be in the future based on an order to be gazetted by the minister. So nobody will just, spontaneously introduce the tax and create problems for the system. So actually, I can tell you that before these tax laws were enacted, shortly after it was signed, there was already an attempt by the agency to even collect the tax. And we have to say to them, you have to wait, you can't collect it because the new law says you are not the one to collect, and commencement will not happen until the minister says so. So there's nothing that says this tax will start 1st of January 2026. People need to get that right. TUC that is planning to go on strike to say it should be removed. I don't know what they want government to remove because it hasn't been imposed. And there's no regulation that says it will be imposed from January. The TUC should have complained and protested when this was introduced since 2007. So we only put it into the new tax law as part of the legislative process for transparency and for orderly implementation. I know everybody is concerned about the impact on inflation. I'm concerned myself. But we also know that around the world, road infrastructure is very critical. Nigeria has close to about 200,000 kilometers of road. Only about 60,000 of them are paved. This is the major reason why transporting anything in Nigeria, whether it's good, whether it's people, it's costly, it's time-consuming, and it's not very safe. If you look at the rural inflation on food and you compare it with inflation on food in the urban center, sometimes the difference is as high as 500 basis points. That's about 5%. In most countries, that will be under 1%. And the majority of the issues that we are dealing with are to do with the state of the road, are to do with illegal taxes being collected at every point when you are moving things around. All those issues are being addressed. We have to recognize that even with the removal of subsidy on fuel, which is helping government to address some of the revenue challenges, that the huge gap that we still have in terms of infrastructural development is not going to be addressed by those revenues alone. So the idea is for the country to try and mobilize revenue in a way that does not create economic distortion, that does not burden the poor and vulnerable, and so on and so forth. Some of the strategy for this, surcharge could be to time it at a time when there is an appreciation in the value of the currency. Naira gained about 1% just yesterday alone. If Naira gains about 5%, and then you put in this tax, nobody will notice there won't be changes in the pump price. Or if the price of crude oil in the international market drops by around 5%, you can also have it at that point. And then we can all focus on how do you spend this money to ensure that it's dedicated to fixing roads that can make all our lives better and bring down the prices of items. For example, we have the road infrastructure tax credits, that is done with the private sector. And we've seen the advantages. People who live in Apapa in Lagos, for example, will not make any complaints at all. Based on that policy, the likes of Dangote, NLNG, Lafarge, MTN are fixing roads. No, there's nothing that says we can have a similar arrangement for the private sector to be involved in ensuring that this money is efficiently utilized. So I think people need to try and take a step back and think about how can these work for our country. And if you all conclude that it can't work, then of course the process is there for the National Assembly to then remove it from the law. So I'll then quickly speak to a few other issues where I see a lot of misconception and misunderstanding in the public space. There's this general assumption in Nigeria that you can simply say that is your life better today than it was 2 years ago. And you then quickly jump into a conclusion that says no, and therefore it means that all the policies are bad. But I always say that that is a very wrong basis for concluding whether reforms are right or not. There is an invalid assumption that we make, which is that if these policies have not been introduced 2 years ago, prices of goods and services would be the same now as they were 2 years ago. And there's nothing that can be further from the truth than that, because the country was getting very close to a total collapse. We got to a point where there was no remittances from NNPC to the Federation account. No money was being given to the central bank in terms of dollars, and the NNPC was using future production of crude oil to subsidize PMS. Of course, we know there was a lot of corruption in that whole process, but the reality was, I think that Nigeria didn't have up to 6 months left for that whole system to collapse. And if these reforms have not been introduced, today you don't even have Dangote refinery refining petroleum product, because how would you borrow $20 billion to build a refinery and then sell it at subsidized amount and hope that government pays you? So some of these reforms, while they may not be yielding the micro results at the household level as of yet, the way we want it, they are showing the right signs from the macro level. And you need the macro to be in place before you can fix the micro. So the challenge for government and policymakers is to accelerate how you transform these economic gains at the macro level, that's the big level, to the lives and livelihood of the individual Nigerians. So on personal income tax, for example, you're exempted from paying personal income tax from January. if you earn anything around 100,000 naira per month or less, which is even more than minimum wage. If you're a middle-class person who earns something around 1.8, 1.9 million or less, you'll see a reduction in the taxes you pay. And then for high-income earners and high-net-worth individuals, you see marginal increases in the amount you pay depending on the size of your income. And this is how it's done everywhere in the world, to protect the vulnerable people and let the people who have the ability to pay a little bit more, pay a little bit more. So what you see on the screen now is some of the analysis we have done. We actually have a tax calculator on our website, and you will see the QR code on the screen where you can easily go there on your calculator, on your phone rather, and just put in your information about the taxes, the income that you earn, and it will tell you how much tax you're paying now versus the one you pay under the new law. And you see that for the majority of Nigerians, like 97, 98%, will be paying no tax or less taxes under the new law when it comes into effect. We also have small businesses. Before, the exemption threshold was 25 million. So what we now have under this new tax law is up to 100 million. So you make up to 100 million naira a year. You don't even need to pay corporate income tax. It's 0%. We didn't have this before. We also have instances of, charging value-added tax, and you can see the list of taxes and levies on the screen. That are so many. There are more than 60. These were not introduced by this government. What this government is doing is to say, this list does not make sense. Can we find a way to repeal many of them? And the ones that are useful, can we harmonize them so that everything all together that you see on this screen will be less than 10? So it will be a single digit. That process is ongoing. Some of it have been done already in the new tax law. Some of them require that we even amend our constitution to be able to implement them. Like you have things like bicycle tax, wheelbarrow tax, produce tax, radio and TV levies in the constitution. So you have to address those issues before the harmonization process can be completed. And it is this government that is saying that those issues must be addressed squarely. As a small business owner, for example, you don't need to charge VAT, you don't need to do withholding tax, and your employees, who are unlikely to be any more than 100,000, are exempted. So you can just focus on doing your business and growing. So this is the whole idea of the reforms. And even beyond that as well, we also have, apart from enhancing the net take-home pay of workers and self-employed people, we also have provisions in these new tax laws to reduce the prices of goods and services by way of VAT. So there's what we call zero-rated VAT. What that means is if you are buying an item, let's say a bottle of water or an item of food, or you're paying for healthcare, or you're paying for education, there'll be no VAT. That's number one. Number two, any VAT incurred by the person providing that good or service to you, in the process of producing that good or service, that VAT will be refunded by the government, so that that business does not carry the burden of VAT that they need to pass to you indirectly by way of higher taxes. We've never had these in Nigeria before. What we had was exempt on certain items, which means no VAT, but you can incur VAT in producing the item. So let me use bread as an example. Bread currently, under the existing law, is exempt. What that means is when you sell bread, don't charge VAT. But the person who produced the bread, the baker, would have incurred VAT on setting up the bakery, on buying oil, on buying sugar, on airtime, on the vehicle for distributing the bread, and so many other VAT, and that baker has to bear the VAT. What do you think the person will do? They will do their calculation very well, add it to the cost of production, add their profit, and then charge you for bread. So you don't see VAT on it, but there is VAT. What this new reform has now done is to say even the baker, not only is that there is no VAT on bread, any VAT incurred by the baker, it will be refunded to the baker so that the price and the cost of bread can come down. And we have this also for education and for healthcare.
Yes.
So in a nutshell, you find that these overall, these tax reforms will benefit the country. Regardless of who you might be, you will benefit. Even the high net worth individuals will benefit because their companies we'll see a reduction in the taxes that they pay.
Yeah,
so we think
yes.
that people should pay attention to the details, not just run with the headlines.
All right, sorry, Dele. We decided to so that you can run through, you know, because the questions is like literally like an avalanche. I don't know how many we can take. We did tell the people that it's more of them, less of us. But before we start reading all of the emails that we've just gotten, of course, you know, Nigerians are angry about the 5% tax, and they want it out. They don't even want it at any point in time. So that is a feeler I get. But there's one part that I would like you to clarify in just 1 minute, and then we can now go to the emails, which has to do with the monies. People on social media, people are seeing other people educating them to the effect that every money that comes through their account, if the tax people will be looking out for those monies such that they should look for a way to separate income from maybe gifts and all of that. Else, tax people will see that every other money that comes into their account is all part of income, so they will tax it. So I want you to bring clarity to that. How would the taxman know that somebody gifted you an amount of money from salaries, from every other? How does the tax person want to walk around that complexity, especially now that Nigeria, we're used to black tax?
Yes, thank you for that question. So it's one of the areas where we've seen that people do not understand what the new law is saying. So number one, whatever is in your bank account does not translate to taxable income. It could be a loan. It could be that you were buying something on behalf of someone. It could be a gift. So what the law says is that as an individual or as a company, you have the obligation to make a declaration yourself. At least you know which one is your income. So you declare that income and you pay tax on it. We call it self-assessment. So one other thing that this law has now done is, while we allow you to make your self-declaration, we will use intelligence within the system to validate whether what you are saying is correct and reliable. So I can easily declare to the government that life is hard and the whole of last year I only made 1 million naira. And government will say, but we see on your payment card, you went to malls, you went to restaurants, and you spent altogether for the year 3 million naira. Where did you see the difference? So, and it's not like government will ask you to pay tax on that difference immediately. They will ask you to explain it. So based on this thing we have in your bank account, we saw that you bought a new car, that you registered, you built a new house, and you connected to electricity. We saw that you traveled abroad. So it's just intelligence, and this is what is done everywhere in the world. This is the only way to ensure that you reduce evasion, and by reducing evasion, you can increase government revenue without new taxes. So I can say to everybody that if you have, a gift from your family or friend, donation into your bank account, nobody is going to tax that. But of course, if you are rendering services and you are receiving money into your bank account or anywhere else, and you are not disclosing it, there will be intelligence to know that you are hiding from the tax authorities, and then they will come after you.
I think it's interesting to hear that come from you, Mr. Oyedele. It's such a big relief, and it also tells us of the fact that there is no hiding place indeed right now, because you're going to trace everybody through their BVNs, through their bank accounts. I'm glad that Jeffrey had to ask that question, because there are other questions as regards even those who do some illegal business, the fraudsters, 6 million into their accounts, 10 million, and all of that. But let's see what our viewers are saying. We have so many questions here for you. Some are asking even up to 2-3 questions. It tells you just how essential this is. So Chidi Ebere from Akuma in Imo State is here. And he or she says, when we say those that earn minimum wage or below are exempted from the personal income tax, that's the PIT, are we referring to the gross income or the taxable income? And she also, or he also says that I will need more clarity on the new rent relief allowance and how applicable it is.
Yeah, excellent question. So thanks to the person that asked the question. So this is also one area where it's not, that is not well understood by people. So when you go to the tax laws and you see first 800,000 at 0%, next this at this percent, those amounts are not the gross income that you earn. They're called taxable income. How do you derive taxable income? If my salary is 100,000 naira in a month, that means in a year, my gross salary is 1,200,000, 1.2 million. You don't take that amount into the tax table and start taxing it. You start by taking out what we call deductions. Deductions include your pension contribution, national housing fund. If you borrowed money to build a house, interest is deductible, and a few other things. Life insurance, there's a fairly long list. Those amounts are deducted. Next, we take out what we call reliefs and allowances. Under this new tax law, we have a rent relief that says whatever rent you have paid, calculate 20% of it and take it out of your gross income before you pay tax, because that amount is granted to you as a relief to reduce the taxes you pay, knowing that having to pay rent puts a burden on you because you don't have a home of your own. So when you take out all of those, whatever is left is what we call taxable income. You then take the first 800,000, and this applies to everyone. The first 800,000 that you earn is at 0%. So which means even though I earn 1.2 million naira a year, by the time I take out all deductions and relief, I'm likely to end up with something that is even less than 800,000. I don't pay any tax, even though I earn 1.2 million naira in a year. So that is how the table is meant to work. And that's why we've now put a calculator on our website, because a lot of people, like I said, who are not tax experts, and they won't admit to their, their followers that this is just their own assumption. They speak authoritatively, and then people now go with that. We've seen instances where they said if you earn more than 800,000 naira a year, you pay 20%. There's nothing like that. You can go to the calculator and do it for yourself. So I've explained both how the taxable income is derived and the rent relief. So thank you.
Let's get in more questions because we have so many of them for you, Mr. Oyedele. So Prince Oscar is here. He says, still on PIT, he says, I want to know more about how the PIT will be working, and on the long run, is there any window for tax refund for personal income taxpayers?
Yes, so tax refund is a situation where you've paid more than you're supposed to have paid. Around the world, sometimes you just, towards the end of the year, you just see a mail, under your door, and they tell you that your account has been credited with refund. We want Nigeria to be like that. I worked in the private sector, helping people with their tax compliance for 22 years, and I only managed to get refund for a client only once. This is something that is supposed to be routine. Under this new tax law, we have now created a framework that will enable people to get refund easily. One, we're saying to government, don't share money in the FAQ every month and finish sharing everything. Let's calculate how much refund is due, take it out of the money in the federation account before we share it. Because that extra amount that belongs to the taxpayer is not government money. We should be able to give it back to them once we've done the analysis and they are justified to their refund. The same structure is being created at the state level as well. So, and if you don't want to collect your refund, you can take your refund in a particular tax area, let's say value-added tax if you're a company, and then use it to pay taxes in other areas because it's really your money. And for VAT, for example, the provision of the new law says government must pay you back your money within 30 days, no questions asked. But there's also a responsibility on you that if you make false claims, you pay a penalty of 200% of the amount. So I think this new system we have built now is to move us in the right direction where doing the right thing is rewarded and doing the wrong thing is punished, so Nigeria can be a better place.
Okay, so Engineer Akinfolari is here. Akinfolari Bumuyi, he says, I am an engineer. Money are paid into my account. Monies are paid into my account, and they are to execute projects. Therefore, not all the monies are my wages. Now, if the government is to tax me based on monies coming into my bank account, there will be problems. For example, he gives an example. He says, 1 million is to be paid to my account. My gain is perhaps only 100K. How will government know that my gain is only 100,000 naira for them to tax and not tax the whole 1 million naira?
Yes, so the engineer has nothing to worry about. So 1 million goes into your account. You know it's for a project, and you know your gain is about 100,000. Like I said, the law says you should declare yourself. You will say that the revenue, because that's your revenue, is 1 million. Your cost is 900,000. Your gain is 100,000. when you look at the law, with 100,000 naira, you don't need to pay tax, but you need to still report yourself, and you don't pay any tax. But if you refuse to do the right thing by declaring your income that is supposed to be taxable or exempt, and then government after 2 or 3 years now says, well, we saw 1 million naira in your account, and we don't know what it is. So we'd assume that it's a taxable income unless you prove otherwise. So again, nothing to worry about for those who want to do the right thing. But for those who are hiding, some of them are earning illegal income. Some of them, it's not even just the bank accounts alone. There's a lot of intelligence around that this system will help us put together. Beyond collecting taxes, these reforms would ensure that, because when you live in a society where tax evasion is allowed to thrive, what it does is that if you and I are operating in the same sector, doing the same business, and you are the honest guy trying to do the right thing, and I'm the guy who is just doing whatever I like, so you have an advantage over me, even though you are the one that is the patriotic and honest citizen, the more of people that we need in Nigeria. So this system is trying to correct that, so that we are only incentivizing doing the right thing. So nothing to worry about, engineer, about money flowing to your account. If it's not your income, nobody will tax it.
Yeah, so more questions for you, Mr. Ayodele. Issa Usman is here. I know you've mentioned this before, but I think this is a concern for many Nigerians as well. It says, please let Mr. Ayodele, Oyedele, you should say, tell us why we should pay this tax at this very time when almost all businesses are crippled as a result of this present government policies that are really impacting negatively on all forms of business. This is a big, big concern, not just for Issa Usman, but for many businesses as well, because many Nigerians are saying, why do I need to pay taxes when I'm benefiting practically nothing from the government?
Yes, so yes, Issa is right. So first thing is that this, I believe he's referring to the surcharge. So like I said, the surcharge is not being introduced from the 1st of January 2026. It cannot be introduced until there has been a public gazette. We don't know when that will be. So of course, it's been in the law since 2007, and it wasn't implemented. So it is not right to say that this will be introduced in 2026 from 1st of January because the tax laws are taking effect. This government did not even want it to take effect immediately. That's why they put the date there to be as announced in the official gazette. If that language was not in the law, then people would be right to say that 1st of January 2026, this will take effect. But that's not what the case is. And for the other reforms in the tax laws, small businesses, large businesses should be looking forward to the implementation of the tax laws because it will reduce their tax burden. Many people who really are looking forward and excited about the reform are the people who run businesses. I've met a lot of small business owners and they kept praying. They are counting down for when these reforms will take effect so their tax burden will go down. So the idea, so it is not right to say Nigerians are suffering and then this tax reform will take effect. No, it's the other way around. It's that things are hard and these reforms want to make things a lot easier for the Nigerian people, stimulate economic activity so that we can all grow together and that there can be shared prosperity. And we're saying this with all sense of responsibility because those issues were addressed specifically in all those tax laws, from value-added tax to personal income tax, to company income tax, to capital gains tax. For example, on capital gains tax, as an individual, you hardly will pay any capital gains tax unless you are selling land. Other than that, you buy and sell shares in the capital market up to 150 million naira a year, you don't pay tax. You sell your car up to 2 cars a year, you don't pay tax. Yeah, the home that you own, you don't pay tax. Practically everything, the capital gains tax has been removed. Same thing with stamp duties, and I can go on and on. And these things are written in black and white in those tax laws. So actually, the objective of this tax reform is to provide relief to the Nigerian people come January 2026 and going forward.
When people hear tax, they don't want to hear anything else, especially in climes where they feel that the government is not doing enough. Across governments, they don't see, as you've alluded to, they feel that they provide their own security, their own this, their own that, and the list is endless. But before I ask the next question from this person, people who are into, a lot of young people now are into Forex, trading, assets and instruments. Are they going to be paying tax as well? They make lots of money, but so that they are clear on how to manage their tax. If you can answer that in 1 minute.
Great question, Jeffrey. So before these new tax laws, if you were dealing in crypto, for example, or forex trading, you were being taxed on when you make a gain, and there was no tax relief when you make losses, which was not really fair. So this new tax law says if you make gains from crypto or any virtual asset or any other activity, we will consider your overall situation. Like, for example, you could have bought crypto when it was $80,000 and then it went down to 60, you made losses. You bought some of them at 70, it went up to 100, you made some gains. This new tax law says bring all of it together, and only when there's a net gain should you pay tax. And if the gain is small, your tax is 0%. So this is what fairness looks like everywhere in the world, and that's what has been introduced now. So people just need to understand what the changes are and how it will benefit them so they can apply it out of knowledge, being well informed rather than just going with public narrative, majority of which are incorrect.
All right, I think this may be the last one. Adejuwon Cornelius says, I think this is, I don't know what it is for everybody. We try to ask questions that are common to all, but let's also take his own concern. The issue of capital allowance, can you explain further? Also, the issue of production day certificate, PDC, can you explain too? I'm sure you understand him.
Yes, so the issue of production day certificate is for tax incentives, something we call economic development incentive. So if you operate in certain sectors, from agri to manufacturing and so on, under this new tax law, you have an incentive of between 5 to 10 years for which you will not pay tax. But government needs to validate that you are doing genuine business, not that you get the incentive and you start importing items. Once all of those validations are done, you are given what we call a certificate of production date to certify that you can now enjoy the incentive. So the detailed provisions are in the tax law. And the capital allowance provision that the person also asked is we've reformed it so that when you buy an asset, you can enjoy tax deduction on the cost of that asset over a period of time that is more reasonable and aligned with modern day reality, so that the pressure on your cash flow and working capital of the business is reduced, because we really want you to grow, not borrowing money at high interest rates to be tied down in taxes and levies to the government. Okay. So these are some of the reforms that we have in the new tax laws.
All right, Mr. Edele, 2 questions in one, if you can help us answer in 2 minutes. Content creators are asking questions about how they will be taxed. Content creators, how they earn their money. That's on one hand. The other hand is, what do you think, because now the tax nets, all of these tax policies, as you say, is to bring relief and make the system work better, but it's also going to accrue revenue in some parts of the government. How should people now be able to hold government to account? Because for some of us who are journalists, if our aggression it was 10, it's going to be 1 million now, because we know that the government is going to look for, yeah, I can promise you that. So content creation and accountability.
Yes, so if you're a content creator, your tax is not different from the person who is buying and selling spare parts or mobile phones. You will declare the income that you earn from your content creation activities. If you have expenses, for example, you need to look good, maybe you buy more things to wear, you promote your channels, and you pay to all these Google and all of them. So you take all that expenses away, and whatever is left is your taxable income, and you apply the table like anybody else. If you are a content creator and you operate as a company, up to 100 million naira that you earn, you don't even pay tax on it. This just looks like too good to be true, but it's there in the tax law. So what I would advise you as a content creator, or anyone for that matter, is read the law. If you can't read it because it's a bit boring and it's a lot, follow analysis from very objective sources. You can go to our website, fiscalreforms.ng, and there are some, organizations that are credible, NESD, top accounting firms, and so on and so forth. See what they analyze. It will help you a lot. And we have various platforms, particularly for small businesses, where we've been engaging and explaining these things to them. We'll do more of it in the coming days, including engagements in local languages. So that is on that. And you can see on the screen how you can follow us on social media, on our website. Now, to the question of accountability, this is something that is so important to all of us, including myself, because the reason why the countries that work are working is because people pay taxes and there's accountability to utilize those resources for the benefit of the people. I always say that, so it costs you more to put up 1 million boreholes for 1 million households than it is for 1 million households to pay a little and for government to provide, water for all of them. The same goes for whether it's electricity or anything else. So it's a well-established principle globally and over the history of mankind that taxation is meant to help society if only it's operated effectively with transparency and with honesty. So that's what we need to demand for. So what I will encourage is, first and foremost, people need to have the right knowledge. You cannot demand accountability on the wrong knowledge or no knowledge at all. Number two is pay attention to what government is doing. If you go to our website now, for example, and you go to our social media account, you find our followers is probably maybe even less than 5,000, right? But then if there's something to show someone who is doing something that adds no value to human life, you may find they have 5 million followers. What are we paying attention to? Whatever you pay attention to, politicians also pay attention to them. So we have to show that these things are important to us so that they can start paying attention to them. And then lastly, is to ask questions and to be very deliberate in how we make our decisions about our governance. And that includes the elections, that includes your engagement during the budgeting process, that includes how you engage with your constituency representatives, local government, states. In Nigeria, we spend like 90% in my estimation of our efforts on just the federal government alone. But guess what? The biggest impact on the people is actually at the local level, followed by the states. And we're not asking enough questions. Let's start asking those questions. And where necessary, feel free to take government to court and ask them for details. Those provisions are there. You can use platforms and associations to do some of these things if you cannot do it alone.
All right.
There's no reason why, and you've seen that done by some of the organized private sector like NECA, like manufacturers. And they are making real impact because of those things that they do. There are platforms like Budget. For example, go to Budget and see how they analyze how government is spending money across Nigeria. Let's follow them, encourage them, and amplify their voices. And overall, as a country, we'll be able to promote better accountability for a better nation.
Zayodele, I know you do a lot of the heavy lifting. This is our service to the country. We needed to take like literally the major part of the program to educate and to bring Nigerians' grievances, angers, ventings to the fore so that they, trust me, maybe we'll forward all the questions to you. It's literally an avalanche of questions from, we'll have another date. Maybe that one will have to do with SMEs alone. We'll dedicate another date for SMEs. And I'm sure that when we call on you, you will be available to do that. But before we let you go, we just wanted to show them that chart on how they can calculate their taxes. So all you have to do is, if you have a QR code on your phone, you can do that. Whatever your bracket is, you'll be able to know what taxes you'll be paying to the government at that level. Taiwo Oyedele, thank you so much, sir, for your time, and I'm happy that somebody like that has your demeanor that has been given this responsibility, because if it's somebody that is easily angry, I can imagine how much you'll be spending in anger management classes. But no matter what we say and what people say, you keep smiling. So. Great personality, Chairman, Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms, Taiwo Oyedele. We're going to have another date for SMEs. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. So, Nigeria, you have it there. All of your questions, we are seeing it. You can go watch this later on. We see the engagement is huge. We can't take all of your questions. We sincerely apologize, but we'll curate it and send it to them so they can answer. But there's one thing you have to take away from this conversation. If government is coming for you for your taxes, go after them. Sue them if you have to, if you're not comfortable with their leadership. That is how it is. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll switch gears now to the strike that is happening in the nation's capital by the resident doctors. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Well, many thanks indeed for staying with us here on the Morning Brief. Let's turn our attention now to something else, and that is indeed very essential for every Nigerian. It's Nigeria's health space or landscape. So the resident doctors nationwide, they began their strike, 7-day strike, I should say, yesterday, Monday. Today is day 2. The man at the apex of that body joins us live on the program, Dr. George Ebong, Chairman, Association of Resident Doctors, FCTA, joins us live on the program. Dr. George, thank you so much for agreeing to talk to us here on the program. So let me start by asking you perhaps what the update is, because the Minister of State for Health, Dr. Isaac Salako, was on our sister program yesterday, Sunrise Daily, and he said there was an ongoing conversation between your body, your association, and the federal government. So where exactly are we at this time in terms of that conversation? Was there ever a meeting at all?
Good morning. So let me just make a little correction. This is not the national body. The national body has its president, Dr. Tope Zenith, but we are the Association of Resident Doctors, FCTA. We are under the minister of the FCT. So we are a section of the national body. So we are on strike. That is, we that work for the FCTA are not the national body at the moment.
Yes, so go ahead and answer the question, Dr. Ebong. So confirm for us if perhaps there was ever any meeting yesterday, because I referred to the fact that the Minister of State for Health, Dr. Salako, had mentioned that there were ongoing talks.
Okay, so it's possible there was an ongoing talk between the Minister of Health and the national body, but we don't represent the national body. We represent the district and general hospitals in FCTA and not the national body. So I don't know if you get what I'm saying.
Okay. We understand that. Just wanted to confirm that from your end, your own association, that there was never a meeting. Just before perhaps we even mention some of the concerns that you have raised, your body has raised, a number of them, almost 10 or 12 demands you have made. Right. I just want to take you up on the fact that you have been quoted as saying that you had engaged with relevant stakeholders before taking this decision to go on a warning strike, a 7-day warning strike.
Yes.
I would like you to walk us through those agencies, mention their names. Which of those relevant agencies or stakeholders did you engage with before taking this decision?
Okay, so we've had several meetings with the acting DG of the Health Management Board for the FCTA. We've had several meetings with the Mandate Secretary. We've had several meetings with the late head of service who just passed. We've had several meetings with the Permanent Secretary Health. And of course, we've had meetings with some of the officials in the minister's office as well.
All right, so let's talk about all of the concerns. I decided to call it like sundry concerns, why this action had to take place. So you walk us through what are the major things you are looking out for as far as resolution is concerned, because strike is almost a recurrent decimal within our climb. Perhaps it's only the only way government pays attention. But so far, so good. As far as these demands are concerned, what are the major demands you're making on the authorities that you're directly under? And what can be done, at least to a large extent, to move the needle for you to begin to reconsider your position? Else, this warning may even become indefinite. I guess that's the direction.
That's correct. Thank you. So we sent them the demands. We've sent them these demands repeatedly. This one that just came up is still the same thing we've sent them before. One, immediate employment. We have been contending with chronic shortages of manpower for a long time. And like I said before, we have a doctor seeing more than 30 patients, 40 patients. We have a doctor doing 7, 8, 9, 10 cesarean sections. We have a doctor working at different hospitals. For example, a doctor can work, let's say, at Nyanya Hospital in the morning and take a call at Asokoro Hospital, for example, in the evening. Or you have a doctor working in the same hospital who is on call in different departments, okay? Just one doctor alone. So we've been having these issues for a long time. And then we're saying that we cannot continue to do this because it's affecting the mental health care of the doctors. We have doctors who are on antidepressants. We have doctors who are on antihypertensives. And it's continued over and over again. So the immediate employment is very paramount right now. We can't even choose to call off the strike if we don't have an assurance or if we don't have immediate employment right now. And then we have cases of salaries being owed, arrears being owed for 1 year, 2 years, and it's become a recurrent culture where a doctor works and then he's not paid or she's not paid. Not just doctors alone. Doctors, nurses, pharmacists, lab scientists, physiotherapists, health workers generally. And you try to fix this problem and it doesn't just work out. So this is one of the problems that we're also facing. We have issues of promotion. Most of the health workers have not been promoted since maybe 3, 4 years ago. We have issues of skipping. Most of the doctors have not been skipped for a long time. And then we don't have house officers. And we have issues of the medical training residency funds. The funds are meant to train doctors in their various fields. And then it's not being paid. And when it's being paid in halves. Or then you also have issues of salaries that are being paid so late, and when they are paid eventually, there are deductions without explanations. So we have all these issues. Our working condition is not good. We have issues where, for example, at Wuse District Hospital, you have a situation whereby the X-ray machine has not worked for 3 years. And we have tried over and over again for them to give us one, and they will refuse to do that. We have issues of, you can go to the lab, for example, and they don't have reagent to work with. You can run some tests over the weekends. You can run some tests in the evening, and you have patients who are rushed to the emergency, and you can't even help them to get some basic things. We don't even have medications at the pharmacy. You go there, they're not even available to be used, to be prescribed to patients. So you go to the dialysis unit, for example, there are no consumables. So these are the things that have been occurring, and it's become a culture, and it's putting so much of stress on us. So we've told them that until they get these things done, within the next 6 days, it will be difficult for us to call off the strike because we need these things to be sorted out before we can work and give our patient the best health care.
All right, Dr. Ebong, let's unpack some of them. I see that we're rolling some of them on the screen so that our audience can also be able to appreciate some of the concerns you've raised. But I'd like to be specific. So let's start with 2 things I would like you to speak to. First, let's talk about manpower gap that you talked about. How many doctors are there under the FCTA administration? How many do we need? Because this is the nation's capital. That's on one hand.
Right.
As far as resident doctors, how many do we have? If you have that number, how many do we need to close that gap? And the second part is, when you talk about the arrears being owed, I think you mentioned the months. In total, how much are we talking about here? So those 2 questions.
Okay, so let me start with the shortage of manpower, because in the FCTA administration, we have 14 district and general hospitals. And then we have the primary health care and the health insurance in charge. So, and in these cases, in some of the hospitals, we don't even have specialists. We don't have enough medical officers and resident doctors. So the last time that there was a calculation of how many of these we'll need, we're going to need as much as 200 or thereabouts. We don't even have anything close to that now. For example, we don't have any plastic surgeon in the whole of the hospital. The one that we had at left is not being replaced. We don't have rheumatologists. Maybe we have just one. We have like only 1 or 2 orthopedic surgeons. And the workload on those people are so many that they cannot even give their best to the patients when they need them. We don't have enough resident doctors. And right now, there is a collation of how many of these healthcare workers, especially doctors, we need in the system. The last one was about 300 to be employed, including medical officers, resident doctors, and specialists. And the last employment that was done in 2011. What we have had since 2011 has been replacement. And the replacement has been scantily done in such a way that those that have left or those that have died have not been replaceable till now. So the work burden is so much. And of course, we don't even have house officers. And these are the ones that can also help to reduce the workload, but we don't have them employed at the moment. So it's so difficult. And that is why you see a doctor having to see as many as 30 patients, 40 patients, or you see a doctor doing like 10 to 11 cesarean sections in a day, and this same doctor is going to do the clinic the following morning till the afternoon and probably go home. He's mentally drained, psychologically drained, and then he's not even giving his best to the patient. So that is very dangerous at the moment.
Absolutely, and we totally agree with you, Dr. Ebon. We must indeed commend you and your colleagues who have stayed behind, especially with the Japa syndrome. A lot of our medical practitioners, have had to leave the country. But again, remind us what the standard practice is according to the WHO, that's the World Health Organization. How many doctors to a patient again?
It should be about a doctor to like 230, 250 patients.
A doctor to 230, 250 patients?
That's correct.
What do we have in Nigeria right now in the FCT where you are?
Well, we have like a doctor to like 10,000 patients.
A doctor to like 10,000 patients. So that means that for every time perhaps there's an emergency, it doesn't even matter if someone, and that's why perhaps we have some of the kind of fatalities we experience in our medical system. But let me just ask you this question, because I'm a bit concerned about how united the FCTA is and the national body, because I expect that both bodies should be in sync so they can have a common front when you face the federal government. So I wonder what perhaps the issues are.
Oh, no, we are united, okay? So the national body is the umbrella body, all right? So we are a local chapter. We report to the national body, and the national body is headed by Dr. Tope Zenith, who is our national president. And of course, the national body has also issued ultimatum to the federal government. But we are not under the federal government. We are under the minister of the FCT. So we are like a state body, but we are under the national body.
Yes, so we're rounding off now. So maybe in 20 seconds, what's the next line of action if this, at the expiration of this warning strike? What would be your next line of action?
There will be a reassessment by the Congress, and hopefully the dialogue, if there should be a dialogue, it's going to be meaningful. And if it's not meaningful, then the Congress will not have a choice than to impose an indefinite strike.
All right. Well, it's a fine place to anchor our conversation with you, Dr. George Ebong, Chairman, Association of Resident Doctors, FCTA. Thank you indeed for talking to us on the program, and we wish you and your team the very best as negotiations go on with the federal government.
Thank you very much.
All right. You're watching The Morning Brief. We are due for a break, but when we come back, so much to unpack as we get to turn to Nigeria's education system or sector. It's the JAMB issue, where we understand that the fingerprints, fraudulent activities there. We'll tell you all about it as we get to the next phase of the program. Please stay with us.
There were revelations yesterday as to the level of manipulation that goes into examinations as revealed by JAMB, by the committee that was set up to find out subversions or maybe infractions. That would be the most appropriate word. So someone who understands technology and the back end is joining us right now. Mr. Chuks Okpaka is a technology expert and consultant. He was the former Microsoft Azure business leader for West Africa and former regional managing director of HP Enterprise West Africa. Mr. Okpaka, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
When I was listening to Mr. Epele yesterday, it was mind-boggling. But you are the tech, you understand. I understand there's something called finger blending, AI-assisted impersonation, through image morphing, all sort of things that, the lay people like us may not really understand in clear detail. But the whole idea is to the effect that this is the extent that people go to manipulate the system, sometimes even aided by parents, to pass JAMB. So walk us through what we're dealing with here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. First, let me lay a little foundation on why I believe the registrar drafted me to join the team. Thank you to him for the work he's doing and to the entire team that worked with me. I was part of the team that reviewed existing registration policies, the guideline they are following today. And that was part of our terms of reference to review what is happening today and to benchmark it against standards all over the world, and then be able to recommend solutions, ways forward for JAMB so that they can stop all the abuse going forward. So we took time, reviewed existing policies, and I believe what we found out was actually, just like you hinted, mind-boggling. A lot of things were involved. First and foremost, the registration policy clearly states that things such as, let's say, multi-factor authentication, meaning that when a candidate comes, they need to log into their portal, they provide their password first and foremost, and probably their fingerprint to authenticate who they are. Now, by finger blending, we realize that JAMB, in their own benevolence, decided to capture the entire 10 fingers, okay? So when the candidate goes to the registration center, you're supposed to capture the entire 10 fingers. But what we have noticed is that for majority of the cases, finger A is for another person, finger B for another person. The entire 10 fingers may be completely 10 different persons. So this is what we mean by finger blending, is that, of course, one will be asking, how is this able to how is the system able to accept this type of thing? Think about it. The system is not actually like looking at you and knowing that, okay, bring your second finger. The second finger you provided is not the same as the same person. So it's only capturing the fingerprints for the fingers presented to it. So it captures those 10 fingers and assumes that those 10 fingers are for one individual. But that is not the case. And I think when Jake was talking yesterday, he made mention of the fact that this is a very systemic and multi-layer faceted fraud going on. A candidate by himself will not be able to just go and put the entire finger, because he goes to a research center. So if another person will come and put their finger instead of the candidate's finger, it means the research center is complicit, okay? Just to tell you how monumental it is that the candidate by themselves, they are unable to do it except with absolute connivance of the research centers or even the CBT centers where they go and do the registration. So that is actually about the finger blending. On images also, you see a part of someone's image, you realize that maybe 50% of the image for another person and another 50% is for another person. This is what we call image morphing. So this happened in a lot of the cases we also reviewed. So from a technology, just I hinted earlier that we try to benchmark what JAMB has put in place against other leading nations. Of course, in Africa, given the scale of Nigeria and the scale of what JAMB has put in place, there is no rival examination center in Africa that we can actually benchmark against. So we went into UK, we look at UCAS, we went into the USA, we reviewed the college board, we also reviewed Cambridge International and looked and compared what they are doing versus what JAMB has put in place. Our finding was actually very, very impressive in that from a technology point of view, JAMB seems to be ahead of all of them. Of course, there were findings around, okay, how friendly is it? It's not about friendliness we are talking about now. It's not about how beautiful it is, but being able to deliver on the solution, being able to deliver what the customer wanted to do. I think that is really where we believe that JAMB has put in place an incredible technology, whether biometric capturing, those multi-factor authentication I talked about earlier, but because there is always that human element, it needs to interface with CBT centers, registration centers, where people are. JAMB have put in place these solutions, but by themselves, they need to accredit centers. They need to work with people who will now reach to the masses. They don't have that infrastructure. So my take, the way we have analyzed it is that technology by itself is good. But when you now have to depend on registration centers, have to depend on CBT centers, have to depend on schools, that's where the issues begin to emanate. Yes. That's where we see
so let's
now starting.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm just looking at the broader infractions here. 4,251 finger blending cases, 190 AI-assisted impersonation cases, 1,878 false disability claims, forged credentials, multiple NIN registrations, and all of that. I know that there are also recommendations when we listen to Dr. Ekpele. Yes, there are recommendations. Perhaps you can walk us through what the ways forward would be. Plus, these were done perhaps in privately owned CBT centers. So what sanctions are we looking at here, not just for the students now, or for the pupil whose results would perhaps be cancelled? How about those CBT centers, perhaps fraudulent CBT centers, I should say? What's the sanction for them?
Absolutely. You're just spot on. I think when we recommend, there are 4 different frames or approaches we provide our recommendation. One of them is on the area of policies and processes. Of course, even though I say that they have put in place an absolute and fabulous technology in place to drive the examination that they conduct today, there are still areas we have seen that they can improve upon. So from a policy point of view, from a processes point of view, we have made those recommendations on areas where we want them to put in place some enhancements. The other one is in the area of security. Of course, the biometrics, the fantastic solution they have put in place. Today, they depend on NIMC for NIN, okay? Which we should actually assume should be the ultimate in terms of authenticating who an individual is. But that is not the case, because they have seen situations where an individual now have 2 NIN numbers, okay? This is really very, very troubling for a country like ours. So from a security point of view, despite what they have put in place, we have also made some recommendations. Maybe need to go towards iris capturing, need to go into palm reading to be able to capture individuals as they are. But I think for every one of those recommendations also comes with its financial burden. The third one also is the legal framework. Okay, I think when you talked about the CBT centers and those schools, what is being done about them, I think is people knowing that if they commit a crime, they can actually go down for it. They will be imprisoned for it, okay? So this is where we are asking JAMB that it's imperative that the legal framework be strengthened so that people will know, the centers will know, the professional exam takers will know, parents will know that if they commit exam infraction or aid or abet infraction or aid infraction, that they are going to go down for it. The last part also we recommended is about stakeholder awareness. I believe with all the text they put in place and all that is going on today, and also to give it to JAMB, There are people that are behind bars today for examination infractions, but we are not talking much. They are not talking so much about. They are not making so much noise about them. So my take is that, or our take is that, the more they engage stakeholders, the media, the school associations, let's say private school owners, public school organizations, the more they engage these different stakeholders and tell them what they are doing, okay, the more people will be deterred from doing or going ahead, the more parents, the more CBT centers. And the other part also will realize that, for instance, they have not been seizing equipment. If, for instance, in the CBT center where they have 250 systems, they discover fraud in that system and they, confiscate those 250 systems, this will be a huge loss to whoever owns that center. I think what we observed was that when the CB center is proscribed for this year, the person goes, uses another name, registers, and then comes back into the system, okay, maybe in another address. The same MAC address for those
I think your point
shows up
is
again.
quite well articulated. I know that you have a lot you can, because you're the techie, you're the one that looks at the back end. Whereas it's just to look at the front end and analyze data. But it's very disturbing. In fact, when I saw the numbers, I'm interested in how public policy affects governance and the governed, and interested in electoral matters as well. So I was thinking, if this is happening at JAMB, all of us who are advocating for electronic voting, is this what we have to prepare for? Because politicians will go to any length to subvert the system or undermine the system. So these are the things we need to prepare for. Okay, Mr. Chuks Okpaka, technology expert consultant, former Microsoft Azure business lead, and former managing director of HP Enterprise West Africa. Well, thank you for your comment on the program. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Well, that's it on the program. Thank you so much for your time, and Kelly. Great job. Thank you for coming as well.
Yes, my debut. I'm Kelly Egiga. Sunrise Daily is next. Good morning.